we know that one of the important aspects of your enterprise applications is the business logic, right? So there are different rule types in Pega which will hold your business logic. So one of which is definitely your data transforms. So most of the business logic would go on the data transforms. Right? Then the next one is your functions, where you write your own Java code. You define your functions. And the third most important one is your activities. Okay? So activities also hold most of the business logic, like relating to interacting with the DBs, or loading the data pages, or probably any kind of DB interactions would go with the activities, right? It plays a prominent role. Now, when you look at the scalability of the activities, it is very high. I mean, when you look at an activity, there is something called as an activity type. Okay, you can use it just like an activity. You can use it like a trigger. You can use it like you can use it for routing. Then you can use it for background processing. Right? So you can use it for on change when part of your declarative rules. The scalability of activities is very high. And in fact, even for the background processing, be it agents, standard agents, advanced agents, or whatever. Now we have got queue process and job schedulers. So for all of this, the base is again an activity only. When I configure a scheduler, it means inside that you have an activity. I configured a queue processor, which means internally there is an activity. So activities are like, very important, and it can be used across different forms in different forms. So I think first we'll look at some activities, then we'll go with this background processing and how do we do it, or how does it replace the standard and advanced agents. So we'll look at that. Okay. This is still loading. One started. Okay. Maybe I'll just okay. Maybe I'll just once reload the instance. Give me. Okay, yeah, just a while. It's now. Now, as we're talking about activities, right? In data transforms, we have got some disadvantages. I mean, like using a data transform, you can perform a set of around 14 actions or so. You have set, remove, update page, apply DT, sort, comment, when, otherwise, append and map to exit for each page and exit data transfer. Around 14 actions are there. But there are quite a few disadvantages when you use your DT. Did you feel there's something lacking on the data transfer? Anything that you felt?
Yes.
Okay, this.
So when we use data transform, we cannot perform DB operations.
Exactly. So one definite disadvantage is I cannot interact with the DB directly using a DT. Okay. Then
if we
anything.
have to write any log message or anything, that also we cannot do.
Okay, log messaging, yes, cannot be. You cannot add in your logs. Agreed.
I think
Okay.
that's the only 2 points I know.
Okay. And what about loops? Looping. So if I would like to write a regular for loop, something like for I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Can I do that in a DT?
No, we won't be able to.
So definitely that kind of looping is not available. Maybe I have for each page in, which is like I can perform the same action on every item on the list. That is okay. But regular looping is not available. Okay. Then what about exception handling? Can I do that? And
No, exception handling can also not be done in data
exception
transform.
handling is not there. I cannot jump. Yes, I cannot jump across the steps and all. Maybe I can exit the DT if some condition is met, but otherwise I cannot you know do any exception handling, or I cannot jump or break wherever I want. Okay. So yes, all these are sort of you know disadvantages that we have on the DT. Now, in order to overcome this, we start looking at activities. Okay. How many methods I have in an activity? Lots. You have around 100 odd methods in your activity. Right? In fact, not every project would use all of it. Right? Maybe when you look at an actual enterprise application, maybe you might hardly use 15 to 20 methods out of all the given methods. Right? A maximum of 15 to 20, not more than that. So we have actions for different operations. Right? I mean, you have around 2 to 3 methods to call one activity from the other activity. Right? We have a call method, we have a branch method, right? We have a queue method. So all this is for calling one activity in another activity, but each of it has its own significance. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll do that as well. Then we have explicit RDB methods are there to directly interact with databases, probably external or internal, whatever. Then I have OBJ methods where you can OBJ open, OBJ save, OBJ delete, where you can handle each entity. Like each record is considered as an object, right? Then you have page properties where you can handle page new is there, page copy, page delete, page view, page merge. So all these are different page related ones. Then you can call a data transform from the activity, right? Using apply DT. Then you can load a data page, right? Then you can exit the activity or you can exit the step. So I mean, multiple methods are there. We'll be looking into it. And one of the important one is your log message. So you can add in some messages to the logs as well. Why is this taking so long? And like I said, the base of activity is going to be used across other rule forms also. When I take a declare trigger, yes, you define your logic inside the activity rule. Okay. Even for the job schedulers and queue processors, the base is again an activity. You just invoke that in a new rule form called job scheduler, but the activity or the main business logic still remains inside it. Yeah, so I think yes. Let's go ahead. Once we look at the activities, then we'll move on to the background processing. Okay. Yes, here is my application. Then how do I create? How do I create an activity? It would be on the technical category. Okay. Now, before jumping on to creating an activity, we need to look at few things, right? So it's not like I create an activity as per my wish. No, it shouldn't be that way. So before creating an activity, I should check if any existing rule types or probably any other rule types will satisfy the requirement, right? Check for possible rule types. Maybe, can this requirement be handled using a data transfer? Or can this be handled using a declare expression? Can this be handled using other flow rules or something? So first check for alternate rule forms. Okay. If no, none of those would work, I should only go for activities. Right. Then check for existing activities. So step 2 is check for any existing activities. Okay. If it can be reused, go ahead, reuse it. If that also did not work, then finally create your own activity. So that's how it has to be. Step 1, check for alternate rule forms. Step 2, check if any existing activities will suit your requirement. Then finally, step 3, create your own activity. Okay. So in our scenario, let's assume none of step 1 and step 2 work. So let me go to step 3 where we are creating our own activity. Right. So let's go with the activities. So let's check in few methods. Okay. So I think we'll go with the easiest one. We'll look at the log message. Okay. The log message will let you log some messages on the Pega logs. So this is just similar to your print statements on the C and Java. Okay. So you can add in the message, and you have different logging levels. We'll see what it is. Okay. Now for each method, generally for every rule in Pega, for any screen that you see, you can always look at the help. So once you go to actions, you can see get help. So this gives you all the details regarding that particular rule, right? On that particular screen, you might be aware of this already. But yeah. Okay. And when it comes to activities, I see a question mark here for each method. So once you click on this, you can see every detail respect to that particular method. Okay, so this is a method specific get help, you can say. So what does that method do? What are the configurations I have to do in order to use that method? So are there any inputs? So all of that would be available on this help. Okay. Now I have different logging levels depending upon the errors. Right? If you remember, we spoke about Pega rules log analyzer. Remember PL?
Yes.
Right? Where all the different kinds of logs are summarized into 3 different categories. You can see Pega logs, you can see JVM garbage logs, you can see alerts, right? So logs are available. Here also, we can use different logging levels depending upon the severity of that error. If it's just an information message, right? There's no severity there. It's just an information. If it's a warning, it's a little more intense. If it's an error, right, it's probably the highest level. Right? So according to the kind of or the scenario you're looking at, you can choose from different logging levels. For now, maybe I'll just use this as an event. So it's just an event. I'm just notifying that this has occurred, something like that. So I am going to use info forced as the logging level. Okay. Info forced. And right, I think before jumping onto methods, right, first let us look at the outlook of the activity. So I have label where I can point out to each step on my activity. Okay. Then I have loop. Okay, so this is loading. In loop, I have different options. I can loop my top level pages. I can loop the embedded pages. I can also have a regular for loop. Okay, so yes, here is the looping option. Right. So how many times would you like to repeat this method? Is it for every item on the top level page? Then every item on the embedded page? Is it for the elements on the value list, value group, or this is your regular for loop? Okay, so yes, this is your regular for loop where you can define your I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus sort of also. Okay, so these are your looping options. Then I have my conditions. So these are your preconditions. So which occur before the method is executed. Okay. So this is similar to your, we have this pre-processing on the flow action, right? So similar to that. This occurs before your method is executed. Your condition, what should happen if the condition is true? Would you like to continue? Would you like to skip? Would you like to jump? Would you like to exit the step, exit the activity? So I have multiple options of what should happen if your condition is true. And what should happen if the condition is false? Okay. And then the actual method, this is where the actual logic or execution will take place. Okay. And then you have a step page. So step page we know is for us to change the context of the method, right? I mean, just like your update page in a data transform. So you use update page to change the context. Similarly, here also we use a step page to change the context of the current transaction. Then I have a description to say what this step is all about, like your comment. And then I have jump for the post actions. This occurs after the method is executed. So you see, and here comes your exception handling. So this part holds good just like your when condition before the method execution, the same way. So what do you want it to do? If it's true, what do you want it to do? It's false. And then if an exception occurred, where would you like to jump? Right? So what should happen if I have to, or what should happen if there's an exception, on which step or which label should I jump to? So that would be mentioned here. Okay, right. So for each step, I can have looping options. I can have when conditions and the actual method execution and then the post actions. So each step is similar to a data transform here. Right? So if I have to, granularize this into a data transform, look at the number of steps I will have in a DT, correct? Because in a DT, if you have to look at a condition, you use otherwise. After that, you use a loop. After that, you use a set action, and that's how the the structure would be. But here, on each step, I can have all these functionalities, and that's why we say that do not use activities just like other rule forms. Okay? We should be really careful on when and why we are using the activity because they might affect the system's performance. It's not might, yes, they would in fact. Yeah, they would impact the system's performance. Okay. I think I'll go ahead first. We'll see this execution. Let us call it somewhere from our pre or post action.
How do they impact the system performance?
See, one thing is looking at the complexity. Now each step has got its own looping options. Then each step has got its when conditions, pre-processing and post-processing. Right? So this occurs for every method that we add. Right? Suppose there's a call method, then maybe there's one more method related to OBJ. Right? And so for each step, the system would check whether there's any looping options or whether there are any preconditions. Then once the method is executed, it will check for the post processing options. It looks for a step page. So for every step, all of this thing would happen. Okay? So the complexity of execution is high when it comes to activity. And using more and more activities will definitely impact the system's performance. So
Okay.
imagine the same thing on the data transform. On a DT, when you have to do a condition or you have to perform some actions, how would it be? It's like the steps are quite simple, isn't it? You do a when condition. Right? After that, maybe you do an otherwise. Some sample DT here. Let's see. The DT seems more. I mean, it's kind of a simple one because here you have if you have to loop in something, right? You give for each page, then maybe you will check a condition, then you will set something or you will sort something. Right? When the condition is false, when it could go to the otherwise condition, then you would do something. So it's kind of a pretty straightforward stuff. Each step is kind of simple, but when you look at an activity, in each step there are a lot of things to look at. There could be loops, there could be preconditions, then the actual method execution, and it can have parameters, right? So when it has parameters, I have to look at the step page. Okay. Then I should also look at the post actions. So this involves a lot of complexity, correct? And that's why the system's performance would be affected when you use more and more activities. That's why even when we create an activity also, the system will not let us directly create it. It will ask us, I mean, it will try to warn us. So yeah. So instead of activities, use something else is what it says. And when you start using activities, the guardrail score also will go down. I hope you observed this, right? The
Yes.
guardrail score is definitely impacted when you use activities. In can't but scenarios, again we have to go for activities, but we would try to avoid it as much as possible.
Okay.
think we'll try to. We'll put it somewhere on the. Okay. We'll just put it on collect information itself. Okay, maybe I'll put it on the post processing. Okay, so I think we'll. Okay, so let us run this. Let us create a transaction. Okay, right, so let us just submit this. Right, so my activity should have been executed. If yes, let's look at the logs. Where can I see it? System, operations, and logs. Yes, look at the log files. Let us look at the Pega logs. Right, and yes, currently it is filtered by admin at the red HR. It's fine. Yes, so here is the log that we have added. So which means my activity has been initiated and yes, the method is executed. Okay, so let's look at, I think we'll look at more methods. So can I call one activity from the other? Yes, you can, but do I have an activity? I think I'll just save as this and create one more activity. And name it my act one. So let's call my act one from my act using a call method. So what call method does is you can call one activity from the other. But the thing is, once the called activity is executed, the control returns back and the rest of the steps will be executed here. For example, let me name it, this is step one. And let me add one more after this. So ideally, I should be seeing this log message as well, step 3, because once this my act 1 is complete, the execution is complete, the control returns back and this method is also executed. Okay. And for each of the methods, I can have the different configurations. So currently we don't have any parameters on this. I mean, this is for if you want to pass in some information from one activity to other, you can pass this current parameter page, but we don't have any as of now. I'm just going to save it. Right, let's look at the clipboard. Sorry, my bad. So why are we looking at the clipboard, right? So we should be looking at the logs, right? Yes, so I see at 9, I have 3 logs reported at 9. The first one, inside my act step 1, agreed. So the execution started from here. Then it should go to my act 1, where yes, I have a log message inside my act 1. Then the control came back and the step 3 is executed. Okay, so with the call method, the control would return back to the calling activity. Now instead of this, if I use branch, so using branch also I can call an activity, but what happens with that? Let's see. So now let's look at the logs once again. Let's submit this, right? Okay. Right, at 9.2, I see two logs this time. It says step 1 is executed, then my act 1 is executed, but step 3 is not executed. So what happens with branch is the control will not return back. It's like it acts as a separate branch of execution. Hmm? So the rest of the steps that you have on the calling activity will not be executed. So that's the difference between your call and branch. Okay. Then I have one more method called queue. Okay. So queue is for queuing your activities. You cannot say which activity will be given precedence, but they would be taken care asynchronously by the system. You're just queuing the activities here. Right? So when there's no dependency on, there's no dependency between one activity and the other, you can go for using a queue. Okay. So typically these three methods are where we call one activity from the other. Okay. I think we will be looking at few other methods also. Again, anyways, once we look at DB updates, we'll again come back to activities. We'll talk about how data is saved or how it is retrieved. We'll talk about that in the activities also. Okay.